A new blame game going down. Kamala Harris somehow thinks it's Joe Biden's fault that she's not way ahead in the polls right about now. And she's definitely not way ahead in the polls right about now. I showed you the NBC one. I showed you the Real Clear Politics one. I showed you the Poly Market one. She's definitely not ahead in these polls right now. Take a look at NBC. Three-way race would have her below Donald Trump. So she can't understand this. The media clearly, Morning Joe folks, crying on the air, they cannot understand this. Why would this be? Well, maybe it's just Joe's fault. Take a look at the new article making headlines. Harris staffers blaming Biden administration for not helping her campaign. They're too much in their feelings. They're too angry, apparently, according to this particular piece in the New York Post. They're too angry about him, not being the nominee, and so they're not doing enough to help her campaign. I'll quote from the article. Vice President Kamala Harris staffers are starting to blame the Biden administration for not doing enough to help her presidential campaign. This is according to a new report, as the Democrat sinks in the polls with less than a month before the November 5th election. Despite the veneer of unity that Harris and President Biden have displayed after Biden dropped out of the race, some of the staffers have reportedly been butting heads behind the scenes. Privately, several members of Harris's team have feuded with Biden's White House staff, feeling that they aren't adequately prioritizing her election bid, while some within the president's orbit still feel raw about his ouster, namely him, and Dr. Jill, and maybe Hunter. Yeah, I think the family's kind of mad. I was once told by someone very close to many top Democrats, had run a lot of campaigns, and he was just kind of speaking off record. And he told me during the commercial break one time when he was on my show over on Fox, we occasionally had Democrats on. This guy was a good Democrat, I got to say. Anyway, he said to me, listen, Biden is nasty. Biden carries a grudge forever. He does not forget, and he gets easily bent out of shape. And so I'm thinking about that as I look at this report coming in, and it makes all the sense in the world. Biden's angry. And so his staff is angry. Think about just the other day, Kamala Harris going out there and saying, Governor DeSantis in Florida, he's politicizing the hurricane. He won't even talk to me. He won't talk to the White House. And Biden comes out within hours and says, actually, no, that's not true. I've had a wonderful conversation. He didn't say, quote, that's not true. But he did say, I've had a wonderful conversation with Ron DeSantis and with all the governors. So boom, smacks her right down. Then there was that time that she was campaigning out in the Midwest where she kind of needs to rally some support. And she's out there, she's going to give this big economic speech. And what does he do? He waltzes in, for the first time ever, he's never just waltzed in to the briefing room where KJP was giving them, Karine Jean-Pierre, the sort of lay of the land for the day, and he suddenly takes to the podium. And so what are you as a cable network supposed to do? Do you go to Kamala Harris, who's giving her speech on the economy, or do you go to the President of the United States, who's actually in the press briefing room with the press at the time? So, of course, they went to the press briefing room, and Kamala was mad. And so now it's leaking out that her whole team is really mad. What did you guys think was going to happen? What did you really and truly think was going to happen? I would like to know. I think you ought to have known what was going to happen because you guys were not born yesterday, for goodness sakes. You've been in politics, one would hope, your whole career. Of course, they may have some 22-year-olds there, surely, on the Kamala team. That's the only way I can actually sometimes explain some of their faux pas. But they should have known that this was not going to go over well with Joe. They should have promised him more. They should have actually maybe just gotten him out of the game way earlier on, and then they wouldn't be in this position, right? But they didn't do that. They didn't do any of it. And so now, sure, he's angry, and he's not going to make it easy because he gets to say all day long. And to the history books, which are very important to Joe Biden. I know that because he brought in a whole slew of history professors and slew of historians in the media. As soon as he came to the White House, he wanted to be the next FDR. History is very important to him. He knows he's probably not going to be around forever. So he wants to go down in history as a great president. He won't. He wants to go down now in history as the guy who could have won and should have won. But some people pulled a sneaky move. and put Kamala in instead.